coordinate bilingualism. The linguistic elements, words, phrases in the speaker's mind are all related to their own unique concepts. This type of bilingual speaker usually belongs to different cultural communities that do not frequently interact.
So, good morning, ma'am, and good morning, classmate. So, this is my report is talk about coordinate bilingualism. So, coordinate bilingualism, a person who regularly uses two languages, the second language having been learned independently from the first and within a different contextual environment. The mental representation of knowledge about the two languages is thought to be relatively independent. Since Erwin and Osgood's 1954 discussion of the problem compound coordinate bilingualism has received the attention of several investigations. For example, Lambert, Havelka, and Crosby 1958, Jacobitz and Lambert 1961, Preston 1965, Kohlers 1963, and others. The distinction between the two types of bilinguals offered by Erwin and Osgood's 1954 was an undimensioned one. In terms of semantic relation between the bilingual's two languages, the compound bilingual was supposed to have a single meaning system hooked up to two different input decoding and output encoding channels corresponding to the bilingual's two languages. These types of bilingualism was assumed to come about as a result of learning the second language in the same environmental setting as the first and using the first language as the indirect and channel of acquisition. In this kind of physico-linguistic system, every word in the second language was a mere replica of a word in the first language, with a one-to-one correspondence in meaning between the two translation equivalents. On the other side of this semantic continuum is located the separated system of coordinate bilingual who is assumed to process two independent meaning systems corresponding to his two languages. This situation is achieved according to this view as a result of direct language acquisition in linguistic cultural community different from one on there is no one-to-one relation between the two meaning systems, and in fact translation equivalents are mere approximation their closeness and depending on similarities in the two cultures involved. So for example, British children in British India learn an Indian language from their nurses and family servants. A second language can also be acquired in school. So that's all, and thank you.
Compound bilingualism. Speakers of this type attach most of their linguistic elements to the same concepts. Those speakers are reported to have less extreme differences in their pronunciation.
Compound bilingualism are those people who have learned both languages from the same environment. The languages would not have separate system in the mind, but they will have no system. Both learn in same environment, but the thing which changes is the words or vocabulary item of two separate languages. For example, both parents are bilingual and both parents speak to child in both languages indiscriminately. The child will grow up to speak both languages, effortless and without an accent, but will never master all the subtleties of either of them. Compound bilingual person process a foreign language is a compound bilingualism. There is no such dividing line. The individual learns the languages in the same environment and context and they are often used concurrently or even interchangeability.
What is subordinate bilingualism? Subordinate bilingualism of people who have learned a second language translate the words of second language in their mother tongue, then they will be able to understand them. Thus, we can say that the conceptual mind remain in one system. This system of mother tongue but additional language will be attached to that system through mother tongue. Subordinate bilingualism does not elements of one speaker of the speaker's languages are available in elements of the speaker's other language. Part-time and compound bilingualism are reported to have a high prevalence. Part of our bilingualism is that both languages are accepted emotionally and linguistically. If this is not the case, the acquisition is more difficult for
Hello everyone, I am Hannah Trenchel, Bachelor of Secondary Education, first year student SETC, and today I am going to discuss what is subordinate bilingualism. Subordinate bilingualism are those people who have learned a second language and cannot understand it without the help of their first language. Such people will translate the word of second language in their mother tongue, then they would be able to understand them. Thus, we say that the concept in this mind will remain in one system. Example, the system of mother tongue, but an additional language is attached to the system through mother tongue. So, subordinate bilingualism are those people who have learned a second language translate the word of second language in their mother tongue when they will be able to understand them. One example is the Japanese word sayonara and translated it to Tagalog to paalam. Once again, I am Hanami Trencho, Bachelor of Secondary Education, first year student SETC. Thank you and God bless us all.
Linguistics. Mutual intelligibility is a relationship between languages or dialects in which speakers of different but related varieties can readily understand each other without prior familiarity or special effort. It is sometimes used as an important criterion for distinguishing languages from dialects, although sociolinguistic factors are often also used. Intelligibility between languages can be asymmetric, with speakers of one understanding more of the other than speakers of the other understanding the first. When it is relatively symmetric, it is characterized as mutual. It exists in differing degrees among many related or geographically proximate languages of the world, often in the context of a dialect continuum. For individuals to achieve moderate proficiency or understanding in a language called L2 other than their first language, L1 typically requires considerable time and effort through study and/or practical application. However, many groups of languages are partly mutually intelligible, that is, most speakers of one language find it relatively easy to achieve some degree of understanding in the related language. Often the languages are genetically related, and they are likely to be similar to each other in grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, or other features.
Today I am going to sum up our report under the activity number 8, which is the mutual intelligibility. Mutual intelligibility is a two or more languages that demonstrate a sufficiently high degree of mutual intelligibility should properly not be considered two distinct languages, but in fact multiple variants of the same language. So, conversely, it is sometimes the case that different varieties of what is considered the same language, that is, according to popular beliefs, governmental stance, or historical convention, are not, in fact, intelligible in practice. Example, dialect continuum, as well as this a system and diglossia for two closely related but distinct language forms.
In linguistics, mutual intelligibility is a relationship between languages or dialects in which speakers or different but related varieties can readily understand each other without prior familiarity or special effort. Example of mutual intelligibility can be found, for instance, between Czech and Slovak, significantly between Dutch and Afrikaans, and partially between Finnish and Estonians, all both in written and spoken forms. Other languages which can be considered mutually intelligible are Italian, French, and Spanish.
Bilingual is defined as having or using two languages, especially as spoken with the fluency characteristic of a native speaker. A person using two languages, especially habitually and with control like that of a native speaker, and bilingual as a constant oral use of two languages. Bilingualism is divided into three different types: both coordinate bilingualism and compound bilingualism develop in early childhood and are classified as forms of early bilingualism. The third type is late bilingualism, which develops when a second language is learned after age 12. Everybody knows what bilingual means, yet as soon as we start trying to define the concept precisely, things get very complicated. This is not just hair splitting if bilingualism is complex. It is because it is directly related to complex issues